If you enjoy the stories and want to hear more, then please consider subscribing. And turn on notifications so you'll never miss a story and be the first to hear. You'll also be supporting me. Thank you. I was in the military back then. It was tough for me to focus on my training and manage my long-distance relationship at the same time. I felt it was right to talk to my girlfriend about it like an adult. I genuinely believed she deserved all the attention compared to what I was offering. She used to send me multiple letters and call the base every other day, and it was difficult for me to find time and write back to her. So one day, I gathered up the courage and told her that I wanted to break up. Her reaction was intense. She started shouting, cursing me, and calling me names. I responded calmly and hung up. A week later, she called the base and claimed I was sharing state secrets. She also called my mom, telling her I died, but the army wouldn't tell her. Crazy enough, right? Yeah, but it doesn't end there. Then she contacted my landlord, saying I was killed, and he should release the apartment. That ended up being hell for me. I almost got dismissed and faced jail time and almost lost my apartment. The military takes such matters very seriously. I was pulled out of formation, arrested, and had no idea what was happening. It took 2 weeks before they believed me and released me back to my unit. Meanwhile, my landlord had started packing up my things to sell. I still think about the karma she might face someday. It's surprising how much chaos happened in just 2 months of dating. She was seriously crazy as fuck. At 25, life took an unexpected twist when I reconnected with an old college friend who had a long-standing crush on me. Despite the initial harmless catch-ups, our paths took a different turn. He pitched a modeling gig for his new jewelry brand, and I was working as an esthetician. Decided to give it a shot. What started professionally turned personal, and we moved in together. However, his dark side, which I thought had vanished since college, resurfaced during arguments, becoming increasingly aggressive. The breaking point came when he challenged me to hit him during an argument. I moved out, distanced myself, and blocked him from my life. With a newfound desire for modeling, I applied to various companies, leading to a locally successful one. However, success came at a price. Anonymous complaints surfaced, accusing me of things I never did. I confronted my boss, urging him to reveal the names behind the baseless accusations flooding my workplace. And it bothered me because everyone at work seemed nice to my face. Over a few months, I kept getting more emails and letters saying bad things about me, and I started avoiding everyone. It felt like everyone secretly hated me, even though they didn't show it. I was going through a really tough time, but I kept working because I didn't have other good options back then. One night, the company had a photo shoot in the evening, and I had to start at 8 p.m. It takes about 25 minutes to drive from my apartment to work, mostly on the highway. When I got there, I saw my boss's car in the parking lot, along with some others. At the far end, I noticed a red SUV Outback, which reminded me of my ex, because he drove the same kind of car. It didn't look like anyone was inside, so I parked on the opposite end. The photo shoot went well, and after a few hours, I left. When I got outside, I saw that the red SUV was gone, so I thought it was just a coincidence. But when I reached my apartment's parking lot, I saw the same red SUV, and it worried me. I called my friend to stay on the phone while I walked in case something happened. I walked quickly to the entrance, looking over my shoulder at the red SUV. As soon as I stepped under the cover, my ex came out of the bushes, attacked me, and started dragging me towards his car. I was screaming and kicking, but he kept on dragging me, and a guy from the building ran towards us. When my ex saw him, he let me go and drove off. The police came a few minutes later because my friend had called them when she heard me scream. I gave the police his name and address, and they arrested him the next day. The whole legal process was tough, and I found out that he was angry because I was modeling for another company. He admitted in court that he sent the bad anonymous emails and letters to my work. It was a really shocking event that made me realize he had a dark side I didn't know about. To this day, I still question myself, how could he stoop so low? When I was 16, I dated an 18-year-old girl, who had a 9-month-old baby. It felt a bit strange, but we got used to it. The relationship didn't last because, well, I was still young. We broke up and she moved on. I left town for a few years. When I met her again at 22, she now had 2 boys. We became friends, and for about 6 months, I stayed at her place during my couch hopping days. She wanted us to be more than friends, but I knew she had a boyfriend. I don't do cheating, so I said maybe if they broke up. I became close to her sons, and they called me Uncle Chris. After leaving her place, I moved to Colorado, then Oregon, and finally Missouri. 9 years later, she emailed me out of the blue. I was surprised but happy to reconnect with an old friend. At that time, I was married, and I shared the news with my wife, letting her know it was just a friendship. We exchanged emails for a while, and I noticed her messages becoming flirtatious. I didn't respond in the same way and tried to ignore any suggestive comments she made, pretending not to notice. Cheating, even emotionally, wasn't my thing. I focused on the other aspects of our conversation. She shared that her eldest son was hanging out with the wrong crowd, getting into drugs, and she was concerned. I tried to be a supportive friend, but I didn't know what to say. She directly asked me to leave my wife and come back home to be with her. I declined, explaining it wasn't going to happen, and suggested it was best if we didn't talk anymore. After that, there was silence for about 6 months. We were also friends on MySpace. Yes, that was still a thing. So she knew when my wife and I separated. 2 months later, she messaged me on MySpace, and the first part of her message broke my heart. She shared, "I just wanted to let you know that oldest son died last week. He overdosed on heroin in one of his friend's bathrooms." I couldn't hold back my tears, remembering the little baby I once held, full of hope. I recalled the conversations when I lived on the couch, answering his 7-year-old questions with his curiosity and intelligence. He was just 16, and it felt incredibly wrong. But the story continued. "I don't blame you for not being there for him. I know you wanted to be a good father, but just didn't know how. I just thought you should know that your son is gone." Hold on, what did this person just say? I read it again 3 times. Yes, she thinks he was my son. How on earth does she think that? He was 9 months old the first time I met her. We only dated for less than 2 months. We never had sex with each other. I thought maybe she had clicked on the wrong name and intended to send that message to his actual father. I looked again and realized she had prefaced it with, "My dearest Chris." Okay, she knew who she was sending it to. I didn't know how to respond, so I didn't. It might seem cruel. She had just lost her son, but I had no idea how to respond if she thought he was my son. It might have just been grief, but it still worried me. A couple of days later, she reached out again, this time talking about how I could come back home, now that I was finally divorced and we could lay our son to rest together, and then we would be together again, like she always wanted. This was disturbing that she was keeping track of my life as well, but I ignored her message again. A couple of days after that, I got yet another message, this time angry that I wasn't acknowledging the death of my son. After that, I blocked her on MySpace. She was seriously freaking me out. A couple of days after that, I got yet another message, this time angry that I wasn't acknowledging the death of my son. After that, I blocked her on MySpace. She was seriously freaking me out. A couple of years later, I actually did move back to my hometown. I had almost forgotten about those messages until I walked into a restaurant one day and saw her sitting in a booth near the back. As soon as I saw her, I felt my stomach drop into my shoes. I realized that she hadn't noticed me yet, and I hauled ass back out the door. I haven't been back to that restaurant since,